My name is Stephen Breuer. I live in Lancaster. I've lived here now since 1966, which is longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. I'm 76 years old, and I lived in interesting times.
My name is Dora Deek. I'm a sixth former at Ripley. I wanted to interview Stephen because it was a chance for me to understand more about my home country, Hungary.
I'm Rosie Nurse. I'm from Leeds, and I wanted to interview Stephen because I study history at A-level, and I thought I would find it interesting to speak to someone who has first-hand experience from an era that I'm particularly interested in. Well, how old were you when the war first started to affect your life?
Probably about 4, when my father was taken off to a labour camp. That was one of the effects, because I don't have too many memories. I mean, I have very few memories of him.
Yeah.
And the fact that he disappeared for longer and periods from the age of my age of 4 till he eventually disappeared completely. When I was 6, there was when the Germans marched into Hungary in 1944. They began to round up the Jews, all in the towns and villages in the countryside, not so much in Budapest. And we were taken to a ghetto in my hometown in the west of the country. And then we were taken to a holding camp where most other people from the town and surrounding villages were taken to Auschwitz. So there was a confinement in that camp in Budapest. Then there was a time in the house, living in a house outside this camp, which was labelled with a 6-pointed star to show that Jews live in this house. Then in December 1944 we got taken to the ghetto. So this was all these were all experiences of being confined, being kept apart, being kept separate. I got to know about the war because there were bombings, and when eventually the Russian army got to Budapest, there was a siege, and you could hear shell fire coming in and going out.
How did you actually survive the Holocaust? Was it just luck, or did something?
I don't feel it was a reward for my virtue, or something discreditable that I had survived when so many other people didn't. It's luck. I had 5 uncles, 2 of whom survived and 3 of whom died. There's no way of thinking of the 2 who survived as being more virtuous than the other 3. The Jewish population was about 2,500 in the town itself, but surrounding countryside, surrounding villages and other families, other Jewish population who were brought in and combined. So that was about 3,000 people. There were various sort of Jewish movements, Zionist and others, in the country during the previous years, and some people were active in these. And what the negotiators in Budapest did was to identify people who had been active in the movement and say the families of these people should be the ones selected out. The selection of the 5 families comprised a total of 51 people. This happened really on the day of when the trains arrived. It was just that these 5 families were taken aside and sent one way into the platform, and the rest of the population of the town, Jewish population of the town and surrounding countryside, were put onto cattle trucks and shipped off to Auschwitz.
Did you know at the time that there were similar events going on all around Europe?
It was very well known throughout, certainly throughout Europe, even if not always outside Europe. In fact, there were 2 people who escaped from Auschwitz in late 43, early 1944, got in touch with the Hungarian Jewish leadership and said, look, hide, disperse, do anything you can because the prospects are very bad. But for some reason, the Hungarian Jewish community convinced itself, it couldn't possibly happen here. You know, we are loyal citizens of Hungary, it couldn't possibly happen here. But they were wrong. Since about 2006, I've been going into schools and talking, usually around about the time of Holocaust commemoration in January, and talking about family experiences with the intention of trying to help the students understand. My excuse for being here is that I lived through it. Now, what we talk about as a Holocaust is a policy by the Nazis in Germany and in some other countries to carry out the systematic killing of very large number of people who were considered to be undesirable because they were Jewish, gypsies, homosexuals, disabled, mentally defective, political opponents, trade unionists, followers of religions they didn't approve of, and so on. What I tried to do is to do it in two ways. One is to give people an understanding of what's involved when you talk about the numbers, because the number of people who died as a result of deliberate policy of killing people of whom the Nazis disapproved is counted in the millions. And the example I quite often give people is the notion that when a person dies, you generally hold a minute's silence in their memory. And if you want to remember those people by holding a minute's silence for each of the people, each of the victims, how long do you think you have to keep quiet?
Several years.
21 years, that's right. That's a lot of silence. It's longer than your mother. And the other aspect of it I tried to convey is the recognition that these were not just statistics. These were people with families, with faces and names and identities, rather than just a mass of people far away. And my impression from feedback from both the students and from the teachers is that the message is getting through. We, the family, got together to set up a memorial plaque in Buchenwald concentration camp, in the anteroom to the crematorium in the camp. And it shows my father's name, place and date of birth, name of his parents, in both in English and in Hebrew. The whole overall combined image shows a judgment on what the Nazis considered the final solution to the Jewish problem, which was to remove them from us from the face of the earth completely. And the plaque represents a partial success because my father died, as did so many millions of other people. But ultimately the attempt failed because some survived and continued to produce successive generations. So they have not managed to kill all the Jews. They failed.